Joining us now is former presidential candidate and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, good to see you. The fact that both McConnell and the White House have had to issue statements about this probably means that the rift is true and worsening.
Well, I don't think they go out for hot dogs together most Thursday nights, so I mean that's a pretty given. By the way, this is my last appearance on Fox because I was notified earlier that I have won the Powerball, and I'm not going to need to work again for the rest of my life. So if you don't see me again,
I think that you would be here. I do not think that you would retire from public life, even if you did win $758 million, Mr. Huckabee.
You know, the truth is I've never bought a single lottery ticket in my life. I just don't think it's a smart investment. Right. When I see all the investment bankers on Wall Street going down and buying lottery tickets, then I'll think maybe there's something to it. But, look, there is, I think, some tension between Mitch McConnell, frankly, between Paul Ryan and the president. And I think a lot of it is that there's frustration on the part of the president, rightfully so, like there's frustration on the part of many of us in the Republican Party who wonder, why don't you guys get something done? Why can't you pass the tax reform? This should be an easy lift for you. I get it that Obamacare, that's a hard one to lift, but you should have done that. But for heaven's sakes, you can do tax reform. You've got the votes. You've made the promises. Now, get off your duffs and get this done.
Governor, how do you feel about, though, President Trump taking shots? And there was a back and forth. It was 2 weeks ago. It started roughly August 9th. Mitch McConnell made that excessive expectations comment. Then President Trump went after McConnell on Twitter. And then he referenced Jeff Flake and Senator John McCain in the speech in Phoenix. And a lot of what you hear on the other side is the president ought to be very careful because don't alienate your own base. You need all of these agenda items pushed through because the bad thing that could happen is the Republicans lose the House, and then he's in store for 2 years of investigations and impeachment.
Dagan, if the Republicans lose the House, it's not Donald Trump who lost it for him. It's because they did not do what they promised for 7.5 years they were going to get done when they had all three of the House, the Senate, and the White House, and they haven't delivered. That's why they're in trouble. And by the way, have they not been paying attention for the past 2 years and 2 months since Donald Trump became a candidate? Are they not aware that if you attack him, he's not going to smile benignly and send you an order of beignets? He's going to take your head off. Now, if they haven't seen that, then they're totally, completely out of touch with reality. Here's my question.
Yes.
People keep saying, how come Donald Trump doesn't, act nicer to Jeff Flake? How come Jeff Flake writes a book attacking the President of the United States of his own party? How come he isn't finding ways to work with him? And if he has a disagreement, take it to him in private, not on television where he gets celebrated by all the liberal networks because he's willing to trash Trump on national TV.
Listen, I'm going to go to Heather on this. I absolutely agree with you. This is all on the Republicans or lawmakers who call themselves Republicans, who act like a bunch of Democrats, who don't want to at least deal with the runaway spending that's in Obamacare. And I predicted this, and I actually enjoy it that the president calls these people out by name. I predicted it before he got inaugurated in January. That you just wait. When they start fumbling the legislative agenda, he's going to be tweeting them by name and calling them names. And Heather, I love this. I enjoy it to the end of the earth.
I love it too. I predicted he would win, and I predicted that he would behave this way, so I'm not at all surprised. Governor, you had a very different way of handling the legislature when you were governor, and you actually achieved success in a bipartisan circumstance, which was very challenging. Trump has the advantage of, at least on the surface, of having a Republican House and a Republican Senate. But he's got rules in the way that make it hard and give 8 Democrats enormous leverage. There's going to be a brewing and ever-escalating fight over the question of whether the Senate should change its rules to allow that legislation to get to the floor and have a vote on it. McConnell obviously doesn't want to change the rules, and Trump is waking up to the fact that his agenda will never pass unless those rules get changed. And in fact, Harry Reid had said that had he had a Democrat president, he was going to change the rules. And I was curious what your advice would be on this particular issue.
Well, let me say, Trump's approach to dealing with legislative issues, very different than mine was. Very different circumstance. I had a 90% Democrat legislature. He's got Republican majorities. So he should have an expectation that they're going to be more cooperative with him than I ever had. Secondly, though, here's my frustration. The Republicans need to think about what's best for the country, not what's best for their own political atmosphere. And if they need to change the rules in order to change things in America that make America a more economically viable engine for the world, then do it. And if that's what it takes to get the tax reform so that we put people to work and get people off of food stamps and welfare and into a job, then for heaven's sakes, do it. The consequences you can justify when you stand before Americans going to the bank depositing a paycheck and say, it's because we changed some rules because we had 8 Democrats who wouldn't work with us. I think that that's what needs to happen at this point in time, and be very clear about, yeah, we're changing the rules, but here's why. We want America to be able to be safe, strong, and we want to put people to work.
Governor, it's Ryan Knudsen from the Journal.
Yeah, thanks. Governor, I'm curious, there's already so much sort of whiplash between Republicans and Democrats on issues. If you make it easier to pass legislation when one party controls the government, you're giving that power to Democrats, of course, when they eventually retain control of the presidency. What is the impact of making it easier to pass legislation? Are we going to see more situations where you go from one set of policies and then 4 or 8 years later you completely switch to something different? Is that good or bad? What are the implications of something like that?
Of course, from my perspective, if you give Democrats that power, they'll mess it up and it'll be bad. But here's the political reality. If they go in and change policies, let's just say the Republicans change it. They get policies. America's economy is strong and people are back at work and we have record low unemployment numbers. We have an infusion of international capital coming back to the United States because it's a safe place to put your investment rather than chasing capital everywhere from America. Then let the Democrats come back in, should they get power, God forbid, and let them bring their ideas. And if it begins to tank the economy, then everybody has a real clear shot of understanding which policies work and which ones don't. In the long term, this great republic is resilient. We go through good times, bad times. We went through 8 years where Obama basically ignored the legislature and just did what he wanted to by executive order. Many of the things he did I felt were unconstitutional. They required legislative authority. He didn't take it. And the Republicans in Congress never challenged him, which they should have done. So, we've had, in essence, a one-party rule for the past 8 years. Let the Republicans operate under the legislative authority that they have under the Constitution and get things done, for heaven's sakes. That's why they were elected.